Welcome to Behind the Lens. Today, a writer, director, Stephen Chbosky. Hi, welcome.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Now, I met you before first with your very first directorial effort, which was one of the more unusual stories I recall, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Mm-hmm. But now you've got your second film out, and it's called Wonder, and it's already bringing you nominations or Critics' Choice Awards, and of course, huge box office. A huge response to this film. So you're 2 for 2 in your directorial career here.
Yes, I've been really lucky, very fortunate.
Yeah, did you set out, you were a writer, and and all of a sudden you became a director with your own writing, which is a unique way to go in. You wrote a book, and you got to adapt it to the screen, and then you got to direct it with The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and that doesn't happen in Hollywood.
No, not very often. No, I hope to be the first person in history to do it twice. That would be great. I just finished my new book about 4 weeks ago, and I hope to do it again.
Really?
Yeah.
What's that book?
I can't tell you.
Oh God. Okay.
No, only because it's with the publishers right now, and it's kind of hush hush and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really excited to do it again.
Oh, that's exciting. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you carved your own unique career out of writing books that you can adapt and then direct and call all the shots on.
Yeah, well, I got, like I said, I got very lucky, and a lot of it was, I remember saying to my dad when I was 12, like, I want to be a writer. And what I meant to say was novelist, but I said writer. And he said, great writers are great readers. And I was a 12-year-old boy from Pittsburgh, and I didn't really read anything. But I watched HBO all the time, Meatballs and like Star Wars and everything else. So I said, okay, I'll just write movies. Then that makes sense. If he had said anything else, I probably never would have pursued cinema at all. I would have been a novelist and probably a professor somewhere.
Is that right? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, so my entire approach to making movies is really, I think, as a novelist, more than looking at things like casting and other ways of writing a screenplay as ways of almost like literature, and that sense of detail versus just more of a standard cinema approach, I think.
Yeah, that's highly unusual. And with Perks, was there any trepidation though? Did you just go in and say, I'm going to direct this movie no matter what, or you don't get the rights to my book?
Pretty much, yeah. I'd had offers. It was an offer for the screenplay, offer for the book rights without me writing, offer for a television show, and I just kept saying no because I knew, because of the nature of the subject of my book, that some very well-meaning executives might say, "Hey, can we?" It would stall out. "Hey, can we get rid of this? Can we?" I just knew that compromise would have killed the movie, and so I just kept saying no. And I wrote the screenplay on spec, off the grid, made all my did all my failing in private, and then finally emerged with a screenplay I thought was really lovely. And from that, I got Russ, Leanne, and John to produce it. And then we got Emma and Logan to star, and then we moved forward. So yeah, it was a speculative thing to do, but it was the only way I knew to keep the integrity of the piece.
Yeah, and did you ever have any self-doubt though, when you're finally behind the camera on the set and you've got all the actors and all the crew, and this is
of course
you come to that, and I mean, you seem, I'm asking that because you seem so self-confident on this.
I think this was the rule I had for myself is I knew, I promised myself I would do a good job on the movie, and I would do what it would take to do the film. However, I didn't know if I would love it or not. To me, it's distinct things. You do your job because people are counting on you, and they're giving you money, and all these actors are trusting you with their art. So, and the crew heads and everything else. So I knew I wouldn't let people down because I'm kind of built that way. But what I found was how much I loved it. And then with Wonder, again, I didn't know, oh, maybe I felt like with Perks, maybe I have to write the book in order to do the movie. And with Wonder, I found out, no, I actually really love to write and direct movies, and especially adaptations, regardless of whether I have the book or not.
And in this case of Wonder, you share writing credit.
But I will say, though, in full disclosure, going back to your original question, that directing in front of John Malkovich, your producer, because he's such a great actor, that was pretty nerve-wracking. I will say, day one, I kept looking over like, does he think I'm stupid? So there's a little bit of that in front of him. But John gave me this incredible bit of advice about performance And I could get into it later now if you want. But basically, he pulled me aside at his last night there and he said about Perks, he said, look, I love your script because it has real heart. Because you have heart, you don't need sentiment. So direct this movie like a guy from Pittsburgh, always get the tough take. And I'll never forget, always get the tough take. That was the line. I love that so much when he said that. And I've used that as the cornerstone of how I work with actors ever since.
I'm wondering when you work with kids, and you obviously worked with a lot of kids on this movie, and including the great Jacob Tremblay, who's a veteran at this point.
He is. He really is.
Who plays Augie.
He's astonishing.
Yeah. And but all of the actors, is that, as the old adage says, never work with kids or animals or things? I mean, does it make it?
Yeah, it's kids, animals, and makeup. I got all three. And you know what? For me, I love working with kids because they're so enthusiastic. You know, you're not, especially with this movie, because it's about kindness and it's about empathy and all these other things, having kids and starting with the kids, because our first week or two of shooting was with the children, they set the tone and we all followed it. Right. You know, to me, my rule with kids is really simple. Know your lines. If you know your lines, I know that natural behavior, curiosity, and excitement's kind of, you know, almost like carry the rest and make it authentic. And I really wanted authentic performances. I didn't want it to feel like, you know, how many kid things to feel like they're heightened, or I just wanted to feel as naturalistic as possible. So yeah, I loved it. You know, I didn't love the scheduling conflicts or the scheduling challenges. They were tough because you can't do overtime. It's like you got this window, and especially with Jacob, with the makeup he had to do. Sometimes I had him maybe 5 hours that day. Yeah. 6 hours that day, and he's in almost every scene.
Yeah, he's the star of the movie.
Yes, he is. So there were some funny, if you ever look at our dailies, sometimes, you know, what you see in the thing, that's it. That's the only take you had because we're done in 4 minutes, and the social worker is going to, you know, who was lovely and very, very lovely to us, but still, the law is the law. You got to do it the right way, and when I wasn't going to break the law, you know, to make the movie about kindness and education. So yeah, it was like what you got, but that's what was so cool, to create the atmosphere that the kids knew that they couldn't fail, that it was like camp, and I wanted it to feel like play, as they say. You know, it's like when you go to the theater, you go to see a play, you don't go to see a work. So that's like the best, you know, it was really fun to work with them.
How about Julia Roberts and Owen? You know, I mean, having them pros, certainly done a million movies, there on the set, how did that work out for you on this movie?
Oh, I loved it. You know, to me, there were moments, you know, because like when you're directing, you're doing your job. You have your responsibilities, and I love this story so much, and I wanted to do a good job for it. But there are moments, like pinch me kind of moments, where they go, okay, and cut, and you walk over and you have a thought like, hey, you know, maybe this thing, maybe we could do it, and then you look up and you're like, that's Julia Roberts I'm talking to. And there were moments of definitely like pinch me, and Owen, I'm a big fan of his, and they brought so much. What I loved about what they brought was above and beyond their own talent, and it's like I felt like for both of them in very elegant ways, it was almost a little bit of an autobiography, you know. Julia is a mother of 3 and a very devoted mother, a very devoted wife, and I could feel that she got to, you know, share that part of herself, which was really exciting. And with Owen, you know, he is a devoted father, and we all know him to be funny, but there are these surprising moments where, with both of them, where it's just, God, they just got you right in the chest, because you knew how much they meant it. You knew how much they were bringing their own lives into the performances. So it was great. It was really great. And also, I'll give them extra credit. When you work with children, as any teacher will tell you, you have to be so patient. Because if you're on camera and it's your coverage, and then the kid, you know, it's the end of their long day and they're off the rails a little bit, or they need a little extra support or guidance or whatever, they were both there 100%. So was Mandy, so was David, yeah, we got really lucky with the grown-ups.
Can anybody tell me what this word means? Anybody? No? Precepts are rules for really important things.
Like mottos.
Like mottos, or like famous quotes, or like lines from a fortune cookie, right? Precepts can help motivate us. They can help guide us when we have to make decisions about really important things, okay? So, who wants to read this month's precept? about you? What's your name?
Summer.
Summer. Want to give it a shot?
When given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind.
I'm curious too, from a point of view of a director who's also a writer and who knows exactly in his head how he wants to see these scenes played. Do you ever just get to a scene when you play it and say, it's just not working the way I'm thinking?
100%.
Yeah.
There is this one in particular, and I guess, spoiler, when in the book Wonder, when the family dog Daisy passes away.
Right.
There's a gorgeous scene where Augie goes to his mom and they talk about, will Daisy recognize me as Daisy in heaven? It's in the book, it'll bring a tear to your eye. It's beautiful. And I tried the scene, almost verbatim from the book, and it didn't work at all. There was something about how heavy it was emotionally, and that's, that part of the movie that I thought, it just doesn't, I can't take it. It's too much. We're almost over the limit as it is.
Right.
So I thought, all right, how do I do this that still has the gravitas of the moment? It's still about the family, but doesn't talk for 2 minutes, which we're not. So I thought, hey, you know what? There's the moment where Augie sees his father crying. And this is a very profound thing, and that's from the book. I was like, and I've seen that in movies before. I've never seen the child walk up to the father and like pat his shoulder and like comfort him. As like a little moment of coming of age, of Augie realizing that the world is not all about him. And that was Owen's last day of shooting. I added it. That was the last thing he shot. And I'd already shot him crying, and I already shot Augie at the banister. All I needed was the little walk up. And there's a moment of chills that happens when you see little Jacob Tremblay walk off into frame and go over and pat his shoulder. And I was like, that's it. That's the moment, because it's about the right parent now. Yeah. And it was just, those moments, you can't. That's what I love, and especially for me. I was saying before, I wanted to feel like summer camp. The truth was, it was for me as well.
Right. Because
sometimes you think like, hey, why don't we have fireworks? And oh, there they are. And you have fireworks. And none of that you add that stuff on the fly. It's great. So yeah, to your question, yes. When a scene is not working, you have to adjust. And for me, at least as a storyteller, realizing that moment with Daisy was with the wrong parent, and to create that thing on the fly, for me, was amazing.
Wow.
And to have the flexibility to do it.
Yeah, and be able to do it too, and separate yourself from your initial thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Here, I'll give you one more, and I hope this is not. You can cut me out if it's dull. But sometimes, if you let's say there's a moment at the lake where the boys, they have this moment after this fight, and it's a very emotional scene.
Right.
And we were losing time again, and so I had, in order to have the time to cover the scene properly, I ended up having Augie walk off camera. And then the kids look at him and walk off camera too. And I shot everything at the lake the next night because I was running out of time, and I wasn't going to rush the performers so they wouldn't have time to prepare and really go there. And so sometimes if a scene's not working, not that it wasn't working, it was not going to work if I rushed it.
Right.
So I was like, okay. And on the fly, you're like, all right, this scene has to work. All right, walk off camera and we'll get it tomorrow. And luckily it didn't rain. Oh.
The other parts of filmmaking, yes, exactly. Well, a terrific film, Wonder, and it's earning its just due with audiences everywhere, and continued good luck with it, Steve.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.